Hello everyone, Tutu Mora here with the Y, bringing you tools to feel well in your body, mind, and spirit. Today we are going to be going through a small lymphatic massage. So I say small because there are so many areas where lymph nodes cluster in the body. There are so many ways that you can go through a lymphatic massage, but we're just going to be attending to a couple spaces along the upper body. So that's where the small comes from. It's a portion of what could be a full lymphatic massage. So just find a comfortable place to sit, stand, or lay down. Just make sure that you have some space to move your hands around and you feel comfortable enough to sit or lay or stand for about 15 minutes. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is just assess how tender some of these spaces are, because our lymph nodes live right under the surface of the skin. We don't need to press very hard to stimulate lymphatic flow. And as well, we never want to push past a place that feels comfortable. So if something feels really tender, then you get to meet yourself where you are. So we don't need to press very hard. If you feel pain, ease back. Okay, so the first place that we are going to assess is going to be right behind the ear, along this space where it comes down to your neck. So along both sides, just kind of feel this space. Notice if it feels a little tender or if it feels okay. And you can use a little pressure to assess, but when we are stimulating the lymphatic system in this area, we want it to be a light touch. So let's start on one side here, and super lightly, let's move really quickly, just a little brushing moment across this space. Light touch. And again, we don't need to use very much pressure to stimulate the lymph flow. This is not like a deep tissue situation here. Light touch, kind of like you're dry brushing with your own finger. So after you've done this, let's just as lightly take some small little spiral circles, and we'll go down and up a couple times. Again, super lightly, and if it feels tender, even more gently. And then let's take that to the other side. So one side might feel more tender than the other. So again, just meet yourself right where you are. Nice and light for our little dry brushing moment. And then small spiral circles. And again, we want to see just a little skin drag as you're moving, but we are not using a lot of pressure because we don't need to. Too much pressure is going to be counterproductive. And then go ahead and rest for a moment. We'll feel a subtle, just opening, a subtle flow. So now let's move to the next space. We are going to come right, almost like if you feel where your cheekbone is, the inside of, one of your nostrils, but just kind of using your finger to palpate gently. Both sides, noticing, so this side's a little more tender for me, but noticing if there's a difference to each side, noticing what feels tender, might feel tender underneath the cheekbones. So noting, okay, it feels a little tender, what pressure do I want to use? So let's take one side first, and we're just going to do our nice little dry brushing, super light against the skin. And then little circles, nice and light. Because again, we're moving something that's right underneath the surface of the skin. We don't need to apply a ton of pressure to stimulate that. Other side, noticing just how you might be able to tend to this side if it feels a little more tender. And small circles. Take a deep breath. Invitation is to have a little water handy too, because water is obviously something we need to stay hydrated and really supports the lymphatic system. So if you take a sip of water, even better. So the next space that we are going to be tending to is going to be right along kind of the temporal line here. So I want you to just notice where your eyebrows are, notice where your temples are, and just feel around for a moment. You'll notice the soft tissue, you'll notice the bone, but again, just kind of palpating this space and noticing if it feels pretty tender or if it feels pretty okay. And let that feedback offer you some insight into just how gentle you may need to be. So let's start our dry brushing. Super light. Again, really imagining what you're stimulating here because it's right underneath the surface of the skin. And little circles. Other side. And little circles. All right, let's take our fingers just to the base of the skull and kind of feeling for the bony ridge that travels up behind your ears, meeting together right at that little notch where the base of your skull meets your spine. And we're just gonna gently tap. Nice and gentle, just tapping along that ridge. And then we're gonna come right underneath the jaw here. And you can kind of just feel along the jaw, underneath the jaw a little bit, but just feeling into some of these spaces. And again, noticing if it feels quite tender or if it feels okay, particularly right along the back of the jaw. And let's start our dry brushing. And it doesn't necessarily matter the direction of the dry brushing because we're tending to the direction, and lymph fluid flows in all different directions. So that's where when we take our little circles or spirals, we are attending to all the ways that that lymph might need to flow. Other side. Go ahead and take a sip of water if you have your water. The last place we're gonna find is our collarbones. So collarbones here, go ahead and just feel for your collarbones for a moment and feel how the bottom part of your collarbone is gonna connect in with your sternum here. So that kind of sternoclavicular joint. But then also feeling how the top of your collarbone is going to connect in with the top of your shoulder. And let's just kind of feel gentle, just palpation of how the collarbones are feeling. This can be a space that might be quite tender for you. So just noticing and letting that be some information to guide the next part. So you can use both of your fingers here, and you can be over your clothing or you can reach for your collarbone directly. But let's just find our dry brushing moment, and you can use both your fingers here if that makes sense, or you can use one finger at a time to attend to both places. But again, we are not digging in here. We are just stimulating something right underneath the skin. Let your gentleness or that touch match the experience that's here. And then top and bottom, we're going to take our small circles. Take your time to do the top before you do the bottom, or vice versa. But point is to just take your time. And to the bottom. Really spending time right by the sternum. And then let's take that to the other side. So especially depending on how tender it feels, you can explore a little bit, or if you're ready to move right into your dry brushing moment, again, super gentle. And you can use one finger. And taking it to the bottom. And then we'll take our soft spiral circles. And finding especially that little connection in with the sternum. Go ahead and rest when you're ready. Just notice how you feel. Maybe take another drink of water. This can feel nice and relaxing. It can feel almost a cooling sensation as you create some movement through this system. So another way to stimulate the lymphatic system is to breathe diaphragmatically. So let's take a moment just to breathe as if you're breathing into your rib cage like it's a barrel. And breathe in such a way that you could perhaps explore all the space that you just created through this lymphatic massage. One more here. Again, invitation to drink some extra water, but let this support you whenever you feel you need a moment to create some movement within your body. There are ways to create movement that don't involve physically moving your body in big ways. Although movement itself is super supportive of the lymphatic system, there are ways to tend to this a little bit more directly, especially if you're noticing some tenderness in some of these spaces. So again, invitation to drink water, breathe diaphragmatically, and gentle touch, because that is how we stimulate the lymphatic system, is gently. So I hope this feels supportive and also sparks your interest in your own body. And I'll see you back here next time on the Wise Recharge with Us from Home series. Take care.